you need to know who you are. You need to know your personality. And I'm not talking about what others want you to be or what others tell you to be. Is who do you want to be? You need to know what motivates you. You need to know what helps you get out of the bed in the morning. But you also need to know what annoys the hell out of you. Everyone has a parasite living inside us that eats away at our confidence. And once you find out what your parasite is and you kill it, that's it, you're good to go.
Hello and welcome to the Future Faces podcast, hosted by the Future Faces Chamber of Commerce, the network helping young professionals across the West Midlands to connect, collaborate and develop in their careers. I'm your host, Sophie Poduval-Morrell, the manager of Future Faces. And on this podcast, we explore the latest trends, technologies, and thought leadership changing the workplace of tomorrow. And today's episode is a really important conversation. We're talking to a Future Faces member. We're going to be talking about resilience. We're going to talk about leadership and what it takes to really grow a successful business whilst navigating personal challenges behind the scenes. So today I am joined by Future Faces member, Ana. Hello,
Hi.
Ana. How are you?
I'm good, and you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. So thank you so much for being with us today. We're going to talk about confidence. We're going to talk about personal development, coaching. I know specifically you help women, particularly women, kind of young professionals from diverse backgrounds. So we're going to talk about kind of overcoming some self-doubt, any negative thinking, career challenges, all that kind of stuff. But before we start that, do you want to introduce yourself, Ana?
Yes. So my name is Ana. I'm a personal and career confidence coach. I'm the founder of Rainha Noir Coaching, which means Black Queen Coaching in a mixture of like Portuguese and French. And I'm from Portugal, so if you hear a bit of an accent or you hear me pronounce a word that sounds a bit weird, it's my Portuguese blood and heritage coming through. And yeah, I've been in the UK for over half of my life now. I used to live in South Wales, which is where I learned how to speak English. Lived there for 4 years and then moved to Birmingham to go to university. So I've worked in higher education universities now since 2012, because the moment I joined university, I wanted to straight away start working as a student ambassador. Because when I visited Birmingham and when I went to Aston University, I had a really good student ambassador. So I decided to then become one in my first year at university. So I was a student ambassador throughout my time at Aston. I then started working at Aston, moved to BCU. I've worked at Newman University as well. I'm currently at BCU, so Birmingham City University, again, where I am the student induction and community manager. And that's a job that to be honest, I really, really love. So the team is new, was started in November as a result of a restructure at the university. And the main goal of the team is just help the diverse group of students that we have at BCU feel like they belong and they're part of the BCU community, especially with everything that's been happening around the world. And there's such a divide in the UK at the moment that for us it's really important to make sure that we cater to the diverse group of students that we have, but also make sure that at the end of the day they can all come together and be part of the BCU community.
So when you first started university, what did you study?
So I studied sociology and social policy as a bachelor's. I'm a bit of a geek. I would say I'm a curious person. So I then decided to do a master's, and I did it in international relations and global governance.
Why?
Because I've always been curious about people and groups of people and communities. I knew I always wanted to work with people, and that was something that I had it since I was in high school in Portugal. And I always thought I wanted to go into psychology, but I felt like once I started doing my A-levels and I did psychology A-level, I thought psychology is very sciencey. It focuses a lot on the science, while sociology focuses more on community, groups of people, social theory. So I enjoy that a bit more. And because I didn't know what I wanted to do after university, I was just like, let me do sociology, because with sociology I can kind of go anywhere. After finishing my bachelor's, I gained a bit of a passion for politics. So then I decided to do the master's in international relations and global governance at Aston as well. But after learning more about the world of politics, I was like, no, I do not want to go into there. I feel like I used to say I don't want my soul to get corrupted, because I think people don't realize how difficult it is to work in politics. And I think that the majority of the people that study politics, at least in the UK, they tend not to go into that field, or they tend to work in the background, because you know how it is once you get there.
It must be really interesting. I know before we started recording, you were telling me a lot about your family history, and also how you sort of first started your trip to the UK thinking you were going to be living in London, not in South Wales. So actually you must find it fascinating that different countries, different cultures and different people, communities are so different.
Yeah, because I think as we were talking, so back in the day in Portugal, we had this idea that the whole of the UK was London. So I came for holiday. I was probably like 13, 14 at the time. And I knew I was coming to the UK. And in my head, I thought, I'm going to London. So I'm going to see like the big red buses like you see in the movies and the series. And I was really excited. And we did fly from Lisbon to London. Myself, my mom, and my brother. And we got there, we were all excited. I think we were like at Heathrow Airport, so you can see some of the buses there. And then my father said, let's get on the coach because we need to continue with our journey. It's going to be a 4-hour trip. And then we were like, how big is London that we need to do a 4-hour trip? And then we ended up in Cardiff, and I was like, okay.
It's a different country.
Yeah. I was like, Cardiff, like, where's Cardiff? What's Cardiff? What's Wales? I'm like, isn't that just like England and London? Like, I don't understand. And then from Cardiff, we had to it was like an hour, like 40 minutes, an hour trip from Cardiff to Merthyr. So my father lives in Merthyr Tydfil, like in the Welsh Valleys. And there's a lot of green. There's a lot of mountains and green everywhere. And we were not used to that because in Lisbon, you do have green spaces, you have trees everywhere, but you don't have mountains. So we were like, where are we? Like, I thought you lived in London. Like, we were so lost. I was so lost. And the culture, the way of living was completely different to how it is in Portugal. So it was a bit of a shock. But for us, it was like, okay, we're only here for holidays. We don't speak English. Let's just have fun. Hopefully we'll see the Queen and then we'll go back to Lisbon. That's what we thought we were going to... That was the mindset that we had for our holiday.
Well, you stuck it out. You really like England. You still live here.
Yeah.
So that's good. So how long have you lived in Birmingham for?
So I've lived in Birmingham now. It's going to be 14 years in September.
Oh, wow.
So I moved to Birmingham for university. And then I kind of just stay. So I feel like I'm an adopted Brum now.
Yeah, adopted Brummie. Love that.
Don't have the accent, but...
That's okay.
I still love Birmingham. I'm always defending Birmingham.
Good. That's what we like to hear. So the main reason that we invited you onto the podcast is we want to talk a bit about confidence coaching. You know, what is confidence coaching? How did you even get involved with confidence coaching? So let's start. Yeah, let's start with what made you get into it?
Like I said before, I always knew I wanted to work with people, and I wanted to do something around helping people sort of grow and develop and become the best version of themselves. So when I was working at Aston University, I fell into sort of like this career in higher education of international student mobility. So helping students go abroad to sort of work, study, and volunteer. But I knew I still wanted to do more because there's only so much you can do with students that want to go abroad, but also with students that want to come to the UK. So I remember talking to a careers consultant, and because I was an Aston alumni, I still had access to them, although even if I did, I worked there, so they would have helped me out anyway. I was talking to her, and she mentioned coaching, and I was like, I don't know what coaching is. Like, tell me more. She told me more about it. She was a coach at the time, And this was before coaching became really big. We're talking probably 2016, 2017. So she recommended I attend. There was a company that used to do like free coaching workshops, just to like an introduction to coaching. So they were coming to Birmingham. I attended one of the sessions, and I really enjoyed it. So then I decided to do my certificate at the University of Warwick, and from then onwards, I was like, "This is it. Like, this is me. This is what I want to do." And at the end of the certificate, I did a little bit of coaching. Didn't have the business yet, and then after I did the diploma at Warwick as well, I decided I wanted to go into coaching. But instead of doing the executive coaching, which is where the majority of the people make their money, I knew I wanted to have an impact and help those who could benefit from coaching, probably couldn't afford it until like a later stage in life. Hence, I decided to focus on young professionals, graduates, people that are just starting their adulthood. As I say, people that just start about to become full-time adults. I wanted to focus on them and help them, because I believe that if you start offering like personal and professional development opportunities to young people from a young age, it will then prevent the generations that are coming after them to have to deal with a high number of toxic leaders like we have nowadays. So that was my mentality at the time, was let's try and do something with this young generation, help them out, support them with their mental health, but also ensure that we are raising a generation that doesn't get into toxic leadership like we have to deal with, unfortunately, nowadays.
That's so interesting what you just said about, because you're right, when you're a senior leader, you've got the money to invest in yourself, and actually you need to do it earlier when you're younger in your career to help you steer. They call it the accidental manager, don't they? There's so many people who, I know work with an accidental manager, somebody who's very good at their day job, not very good at managing a team, which are two completely different things. So yeah, that's really amazing. I mean, obviously at Future Faces, we are all about championing young professionals. We want to really upscale and support young professionals as much as we can. So we've got you there. We get you. So when we're talking specifically about confidence coaching, can you talk a bit more about that? I know that's what you kind of specialise in. So how would you help somebody who wants to kind of build their confidence and their personal development?
I think confidence is such a individual thing that my approach is different from person to person, from like client to client. But I would say that some of the things that people need to do in order to develop their confidence is that you just don't wake up and become confident. That's one of the first things I would say. And I think there's also a difference between intrinsic confidence and extrinsic confidence. I think extrinsic confidence anyone can get, and it's like instant, but it doesn't last long. It's very like short term. It's like you wearing like nice clothes, you put it on your makeup, getting your hair done, like if you go into a gala, like the Future Faces award ceremony, you feel like all powerful and like you're like, oh, I'm feeling myself. But then once you get home and you take the shoes off, the clothes, the makeup and everything, the anxiety still comes on, like the self-limiting beliefs, the doubts, that still comes on. So what I focus on is that intrinsic confidence, the confidence that comes from within. And the only way people can develop that is if, number one, they know who they are. You need to know who you are. You need to know your personality. And I'm not talking about what others want you to be or what others tell you to be. Is who do you want to be? Who are you going to tell yourself and tell others that you are? Boundaries. Boundaries are really, really, really important. And I usually say that a way in which you can sort of find out if you have boundaries or not, because I think a lot of people don't understand what boundaries are, is asking yourself, what do you find respectful and what do you find disrespectful? And then think about the interactions that you have with others and try and find out how many people do things that you find disrespectful, that make you feel uncomfortable, but yet you still have some sort of relationship with them. and still let them get away with murder and continue to do the things that make you uncomfortable. And I'd say the third thing is values. You need to know what motivates you. You need to know what helps you get out of the bed in the morning. But you also need to know what annoys the hell out of you. Like, what are the things that you see happen and you're like, that's it. Like, I need to go and do something. Like, this really, really gets to me. And I think if you know those three things, you can then go on to the next phase, which is working on relationships. And this, I'm talking about love relationships, friendships, work relationships, and then the confidence will come as a result of you working on those 4 fields.
Oh, there's a lot to unpack there. Let's just go back to, so confidence is not something we're born with.
No.
And people believe that, don't they? People say, oh, they're really confident. That's just not who I am. But confidence is not something that we're born with. It's something that we practice. And I guess some of us are lucky or blessed that we've grown up in an environment that's supported us to be confident.
Very true.
And some of us haven't, which is why we think people are naturally born confident and others aren't. But actually, a lot of it's to do with the messaging the external messaging that we're given. I think boundaries is incredibly interesting. I'm not good with boundaries, but I have been recommended a book which I have read called Boundaries by a psychologist called Henry Cloud, and I think it's fascinating. I mean, he talks in the book about when we think we're a nice person, we allow people to completely trample our boundaries.
Very true.
Because we think, oh, well, I'm a nice person, so to do X, Y, and Z, we need to be kind and generous. And actually, there's a difference between being kind and being trampled on.
Yeah, because I think he links really well with people pleasing. People think that, like you said, if you're nice and you let everyone do whatever they want, they will be there for you and people will never leave you. And that's not true. And I think that's something that comes with us, these people pleasing tendencies. Because if we think about it, like in prehistoric times, like caveman, our ancestors, they had to be people pleasers in order to protect themselves, in order to feel safe. Because if you were alone, who was going to defend you? Who was going to look out for you at night when you're sleeping? What if you were walking, in the middle of a jungle trying to go somewhere and an animal attacked you? So you needed to be in a group. You needed to be part of a community. So in order for you to be part of a community, you sometimes had to do things that you didn't want to do. You had to people please. And that sort of stayed with the human race. And that's why a lot of us are people pleasers. But also because society tells us that you need to do this, you need to do all of these sacrifices, you need to be nice if you want to move on and move ahead in life. And I don't think that's necessarily true, because how many millionaires and billionaires can we think of? They are not the nicest people, but they made it. A lot of them come from the really, really poor backgrounds, but they make it, and they're not the nicest people.
I think as well, there is a distinction between being a nice person and being a people pleaser. You can still be a kind, lovely person without being a chronic people pleaser. I definitely fall into the chronic people pleasing category. I know that I do. I find it really hard to say no. So help me.
What is it about saying no that you find difficult?
Well, I want everyone to like me. I don't know. I guess it depends on the situation to an extent. Yeah.
But what makes you think that people will not like you if you say no?
I have no idea. I don't know. I maybe need to work on that.
Yeah. I could ask you more, but then we were going to a whole coaching session, and I don't know what will come out of it. So to be on the safe side, just think about what is it about you saying no to people that would make you think that people would just assume that you're not nice, and maybe even think about, was there a situation in your life in the past where you have said no to someone and they started saying that you are not a nice person?
Have you got people who are listening, have you got any advice where people can even start if they think they struggle with people pleasing?
If this was face to face and it was an event, we usually in embodiment coaching, we have poses that people do. So we have this, we call it embodied toolkit, which is a mixture of like yoga poses that were brought into coaching by Mark Walsh. So it's like the founder, I would say, of embodiment coaching in the coaching world. But a disclaimer, if you do go and like search him up or go on YouTube, he's British, but he swears a lot. So just a disclaimer, if you do go and search for him, I've warned you, he swears a lot. But he's really good when it comes to embodiment coaching. And there are certain poses that we do. For example, for people pleasing, we get people to do the no pose and the yes pose. And I've done it with clients, and you'd be surprised at the insight and the awareness that brings to people. So I'd say research the yes and the no pose, but also just think about what is it that stops you from saying no to people, but also what is it that you feel in the body when you want to say no, but you stop yourself and say yes instead, and try to sort of like search and be a bit curious about that feeling and that emotion, and just explore it a little bit. And then obviously if you don't get anywhere, contact me, and then I shall help you. I shall help you find out why you find it difficult to say no. But I think there's people need to develop a sense of awareness in their body and maybe in their past experiences to be able to identify what is it in their past that has made them the way they are today. And the reason why they are people pleasers, and they find it difficult to say no. Because I usually say everyone has a parasite living inside us that eats away at our confidence. And once you find out where your parasite is and you kill it, that's it, you're good to go.
Because I'm thinking we've got a lot of young professionals listening who maybe work in an industry where there is a big expectation of them from their boss. You know, I really need you to work late tonight. I need you to get X, Y, and Z done. I really need you to go to that event. I really need you to, you know, X, Y, and Z. What advice do you give to young professionals who they're trying to build a career? They want to impress their boss. They want to look good in front of them. How do you balance people pleasing with climbing the career ladder?
Yeah, I think you need to have strong boundaries, and remember that yes, you're trying to move up in the career ladder, you're trying to build a career in this industry. They may expect something from you, because I know it changes from industry to industry, but just remember that at the end of the day, when you go home, it's just you and your body alone. There isn't a career, there isn't a boss there, there's no one there. So you need to prioritize yourself, and you need to protect yourself in the process. And you do that by having boundaries and negotiating. That doesn't mean that if your boss, you sort of like start working on your boundaries and you establish strong boundaries, and then let's say tomorrow your boss asks you to stay until 8:00 because you really need to finish this project. I'm not going to judge you and say that you don't have strong boundaries if you say yes, because even I work overtime sometimes, but I negotiate. I'm like, okay, I'll work overtime today because we need to finish this, but tomorrow I'm finishing early, or on the next day I will like take the extra hours. I think it's all about negotiating and showing to your boss that you have strong boundaries, you are a confident person. Yes, you can do the job because you show them that you can do the job, but by you showing them that you're confident, they'll probably respect you more. And instead of coming to you with foolish like requests, they'll probably send the foolish request to someone else and come with the serious things to you. And also, if we think about leadership, they usually want people that are strong, that are confident, and people that can do the job. They won't necessarily look at the people skills, although they should. But if you come across as someone confident and strong, they will remember you when it comes to promotions.
So there we go, guys.
Just be confident and protect yourself first. Build strong boundaries and learn to negotiate.
I think somebody once said to me, every time you say yes to something, you are also saying no to something else.
Yes.
So I think it's that thought process, actually. If I'm saying yes to working late tonight, I'm saying no to an early night's sleep, preparing dinner, a nutritious dinner that I'm going to cook for myself. I'm saying no to maybe seeing my partner or my friends or whatever it is. So I guess it's knowing, am I okay with saying no to those things? By saying yes, what am I saying no to?
And also thinking about the consequences of you saying yes to work and saying no to, for example, spending time with your partner, spending time with your friends. what impact is that going to have on those important relationships? Because like I said, at the end of the day, you work 9 to 5. Once you leave work, those people who are part of your community are the ones that are going to be there for you. If you then, I don't know, get made redundant, God forbid, but if you get made redundant or you lose your job, those are the people that will be there for you. So you also need to be able to negotiate and prioritize and see what's important to you.
I think that's quite difficult actually. When you're when you're a young professional, you're just navigating the career world. There is that, what do you fall back on if you like you say, if you get made redundant? Essentially, you are a number in a company.
Everyone is replaceable.
Yeah. And I don't think we get that when we're young. We think, no. I'm bringing my own thing. I'm unique. I'm different. Yeah, we are. But from a company perspective, it's not always the case, is it? And it's hard, I think, to balance that.
Yeah. And I think also if we think about society and the way we've been raised and what we see on social media with like this whole hustle culture, and you need to work, and you have your 9 to 5 and your 5 to 9. All of that, you being fed that from a young age. So when you get into the world of work, especially if you go into like corporate, you think, oh, this is what I have to do. Like I need to work. If I want to move up, if I want to get like that 6-figure salary. And a lot of people on social media will tell you, you need to work hard. You need to do this, time, that if you want to get to my position. Here are the 5 tips if you want to be successful. But they never show you the other side. No one ever shows you the backstage. And unfortunately, we have a lot of young people that will follow that and think that the front stage is the backstage, and they'll mix everything up until it comes to the detriment, and then they end up burning out, or they end up having to have time off due to anxiety and depression. And I just think it's not worth it. Don't believe everything that you see on social media. Like, there needs to be a balance. There's a reason why everyone is talking about work-life balance, is because there is a need for a work-life balance. So don't believe the hype on social media.
I think success is really an interesting word, and it's how do you define success? What is success to you? And that's, I think, the trap. People see success as lots of money, fame, and actually, is success happiness? I don't think so. I mean, I think that's a trap that a lot of young professionals fall into.
Yeah. Success is individual. It's subjective as well. What success means to me, it won't mean to you and to someone else out there. For some people, success could be, yes, having lots of money, having like a big mansion, and
it's a lot of cleaning there, isn't it? A big mansion.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're into cleaning, yeah, unless you get a maid. But for some people, success is that. For others, it's health.
Yeah.
Because they might have grown up with some health problems, or seen someone in their family who has got through a lot of health problems. For others, it may be just the ability to be able to pay your bills and put food on the table, because they might have grown up like in an environment where their parents might have faced like some financial difficulties. So success is different to everyone. And I would say work towards your own version of success, and don't let anyone else come and tell you that isn't success, because your life is your life, their life is their life. You're all walking in different paths. So your end goal is going to be different to someone else's end goal, because your paths are different. So your version of success is your version of success. If someone else comes and tells you that is not success, just tell them to carry on their path. And then
you talked about this earlier, but I think it's important to bring it back into this conversation now, which is values.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people don't know what their values are.
No.
And actually, if you know and have defined your values, that helps you understand what success looks like to you.
Yes.
I would say I know my values quite well. I'm a big fan of, I don't know if you've heard a guy called Dr. Chatterjee. I'm a big fan of Dr. Chatterjee. I talk about him all the time. He's like the number one podcast in like the health and wellbeing space on Spotify. And I was lucky enough to go to one of his events last year with a friend of mine. And he talks about success, and he talks about values and how we have internal values and external values. And we all are different, and it's okay for them to be different. But actually just knowing what our values are contribute to that. Can you talk a bit about values, what you believe about that?
I usually work with clients and like a lot of young people. So every year I do like a coaching workshop for final year journalism students at BCU. And it's all about career alignment and career success. But I usually start with the students by getting them to think about their values and getting them to understand what their values are. So I usually do like what I call a silent coaching exercise, where I ask them a set of questions to then help them identify what their values are, and then help them see, based on your values, what kind of company do you want to work for? What kind of industry do you want to work for? Do you want to work in the UK or abroad? What does a company need to have in place in order for you to be happy? And is this even a career field that you want to go into in the first place? Does this career field align with your values?
Wow.
Because I think a lot of people think values are just something that you have in your personal life, but no, values in your personal life are going to have an impact on your happiness when it comes to your career and your professional development. So I usually get them to think about, what is it that motivates you? What is it that gets you going? What is it that is really important to you? And I get them even to think about family and friends, and think about what values are important to you at home and what values are important to you at work, and which values sort of like go into both spheres. Because if you don't know what motivates you, if you don't know what gets you going, but also what really, really annoys you, like, how are you going to navigate life in this world that is constantly changing, in this society that is always evolving? You need, I feel like your values are like your anchor.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
I think as a generation, we are lucky that we do. I mean, I know there's a lot of bad stuff about social media, but actually social media does give us this platform of people like yourself talking about this kind of thing. And actually, you know, our parents' generation didn't have that. They got a job, whether they liked it or not.
Yes.
They just worked that job, a lot of them for their whole life. They didn't change, you know. I mean, millennials and kind of below change jobs all the time. It's quite often, you quite often see people changing careers or changing jobs. It was just unheard of back then. So just, if we go back to values, can you just give me an example? So somebody might be listening thinking, I have no idea what my values are. I have no idea what values, you know, what does that even mean? Would you give some examples so that people listening might be able to...
So some of the questions that I usually ask when I do the workshop, just to help people identify their values, are, for example, what's important to you? And then I'm like, they'll say, I don't know. I'll say, for example, my family. And then I'll ask the question. So if your family is important to you, what does this say about you? And then it goes on. I ask that question 3 times to help them like come up with 3 values. And then we sort of like reverse the questions. So what annoys you? And I'll say, for example, I don't know.
Family.
Imagine family. So what annoys you? Family. So if family annoys you, what does this say about you? And then you ask, if this happened in the world and you turned it, like, let's say, if your family was really annoying and your family, I don't know, disappeared in the world. If you turn that upside down, what does that say about you? So just getting people to really reflect on who they are and what's important to them. And then usually what I do is just put like a list of like different values up, just to help them sort of like identify what those words mean. And you can find this like on Google. So for example, for me, my family and friends are really important to me. So one of my values is community. One of the things that really, really, really annoys me is rudeness. I do not like people that are rude. So one of my values is respect. Because if you respect others, you're not going to be rude to them. You're going to treat them well. So it's things like that. Just identifying what's important to you, what annoys you, and then seeing what value that aligns with. And then seeing how, if that is actually the correct value, because there's so many values and some of them are similar. And then seeing which values are important to you at work, which values are important to you at home. For example, like trust and honesty is really important to me. And that's something that's really important to me in my personal life. At work, I don't care so much. But for example, respect is something that is important to me both at home and at work. because just something because rudeness annoys me so much. I feel like you just need to be respectful regardless of where you are, regardless if you like people or not. So things like that is a way in which you can identify your values and find out sort of like what's your foundation.
For me, one of my values is my marriage. It's really important to me to have a good marriage. And I use that a lot when I'm thinking about my work. I really love my job. I always say I have the best job in the world. I love my job. And I get invited to lots of things as a result of my job. But actually, if I say yes to all the events that I get invited to, it's not good for my marriage.
Yeah.
I have to choose what is important, what is deserving of my time, because my marriage has to be the most important thing. And it's balancing that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think going away and thinking about what's important to you, what are your values, helps you then create those boundaries for sure.
Yeah, and like I was about to say when you were explaining, I think that shows the boundaries that you have in place, but also what's your priority, because your marriage is really valuable to you. It's one of your values. You're going to make sure that you prioritize that, because like we said, it's really important to you. So when people ask you for other things, instead of being a people pleaser and be like, oh yes, I'll go and do it, you're like, actually no. Because like you said before, if you say yes to this, then you're saying no to something that is really important to you, and it's probably like part of your foundation.
From all of the sort of coaching sessions that you do, what do you see that often is a challenge for people? Kind of what's the most common challenge that people face?
Boundaries. Boundaries. Usually, clients will come to me because they lack boundaries, because they're people pleasers, because they have this mindset that if you have boundaries, you are arrogant. I actually had a client once. They had no boundaries in place, because she had this idea that if you have strong boundaries in place, then that means you are an arrogant person. And she did not want to be an arrogant person. And culture played a part in it as well, because of her cultural background. But I remember talking to her and telling her, I consider myself a confident person and I have strong boundaries in place. So would you say that I'm arrogant? And she said, no, I don't think you are arrogant. And I was like, okay, well then what makes you think that having strong boundaries in place makes someone arrogant? And I remember doing some role playing with her and asking her, saying, okay, imagine, like we were in an office, and I said, imagine this office is like your life, and this door are like your boundaries. And I said, imagine I knock on the door and I ask, can I come in? And you say, no, give me 5 minutes and then I'll let you in. That's fine. I said, if you say that to anyone else, they will respect it and it will be fine. That's you establishing your boundaries. Does that make you arrogant? No. And I said, imagine now I just barge into here. You told me to wait 5 minutes. I'm like, I don't care. I'm just going to come in and whatever. How would that make you feel? She said, oh, I'll feel like a little bit like violated and disrespected. And I said, okay, what if I then decide to barge in? You told me to wait 5 minutes. I decided to barge in and you actually stay by the door. And you said, no, you're not coming in, because I said, I'm not ready. And I'm trying to come in. What do you think you're doing? She said, I'm just protecting myself, protecting my boundaries. And I was like, okay, so what are boundaries then? Is you protecting yourself from others? She said, yes. And I was like, does that make you an arrogant person then, if you're trying to protect yourself? And she just had that light bulb moment of like, oh, actually, no, like I'm simply protecting myself. And I'm like, yes, that's the way you should see boundaries. Boundaries is a way for you to protect yourself, protect what's important to you. And I think oftentimes people think that if they do that, they're actually doing themselves a disservice. And I actually think it's the opposite. If you have boundaries in place, you're actually protecting yourself. And that's why I see, like, time and time again, is people coming to me with a lack of boundaries because they think that they need to, they need to sort of like protect others instead of protecting themselves.
And that comes to that, yeah, people pleasing is a big, you want to protect everybody else around you, make them happy.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what happens to you, as long as the people you love and that are around you feel protected. And that can be in a work environment or in a personal environment.
Yes, very true.
So, Anna, before we finish today, I'd love to do something a little bit different, because coaching can feel quite abstract, I guess, if people have never done it before or haven't really experienced it before. So I thought it might be quite valuable to do like a bit of a live coaching session for our listeners. So let's imagine there's a young professional listening. I hope there is. I hope there's some young professionals listening. There'll be a lot of them. So someone's quite early in their career and they struggle specifically with self-confidence at work. Maybe they can't speak up in meetings, maybe they compare themselves to other people, or they just feel like, you know, they're constantly not really good enough. If that person came to you for coaching, where would you begin with them?
So usually before any coaching session, to help people develop their awareness, because in embodiment coaching, we have this thing where we say awareness and choice are really important. And a lot of people are not self-aware or aware of others. So I usually ask people, what is the situation? What do you want? And then ask them, what do you really, really want? So for this person, I would ask them, okay, what is the situation? What's happening? Okay, you said you're not speaking up at meetings. Why are you not speaking up at meetings? Can you give me an example? Can you go back to a situation where you were at a meeting, you wanted to say something, but you stopped yourself from doing that? And I'll get them to describe what goes through their head, like what happens in the body. Did you get like a feeling in the body? Where in the body do you get that? And can you describe it? And then try to get them to move from, let's say, for example, usually we'll ask, if you get a feeling, I don't know, like in your chest, and you feel like your chest is really tight, I'll ask them, okay, does that have a shape? Does it have a color? Okay, if it is, I don't know, black, what color would you like it to be? And they may say, I don't know, red. And I'll be like, okay, so what do you need to do in order for that feeling to move from black to red? Or if they give it a number and they usually say like 2 or 3, I'm like, okay, so what is it that you need to do to move it to a 5? And then what needs to happen for you to move it to a 7? And then what does 10 look like? So give people get people to create a small action plan, so they can start working on it slowly whilst they build their awareness. Because once you're self-aware and you know what is it that's stopping you from speaking up at meetings, from standing up to yourself, for yourself, you then are able to develop that awareness and be like, oh, okay, I'm starting to get that feeling in the chest again at this meeting. I know that it is because of this, but I know that I want to get to a 5, and this is what I need to do in order to get to a 5. So let me do that now so that I am able to speak up at this meeting and then make better choices. So it's all about you developing that awareness so you can make better choices for yourself.
I'm just thinking about Rebecca Mander. A lot of our members will know Rebecca Mander. She's done lots of events for us and she's been on the podcast before. One of the things that Rebecca says is 80% of performance is mindset, only 20% is skill. Now I'm thinking about a lot of our listeners work in professional services.
Yes.
To work in professional services, you have to have a certain level of qualification. How many of our listeners are sitting there thinking, how many times have they been in a boardroom with their colleagues who are all the same skill level as them?
Yeah.
They have the same qualification, they've got pretty much the same work experience because they've had to do that to get to where they are. Why is your colleague more confident than you? Why are they getting the opportunities and you're not? And it's because exactly what you're talking about there. You know, we've all, you know, in that environment, you've all got the same skill in terms of the job, but not the same confidence level.
Yeah, and sometimes you even have people that are not at the same, like, skill set or knowledge level as you, but because they have that confidence, they are able to make it to the next stage, or they're able to get that promotion. I remember someone once, quite like early in my career, I used to work like in this department where you had a lot of people that were really good talkers, really confident, but they weren't that good at their job, but they were the ones who used to get promoted. And she used to tell us how they're being rewarded for their incompetence. And I used to think, but why would people be rewarded for their incompetence? It doesn't make any sense. And then when I actually stopped to reflect on it, I was like, they're not actually being rewarded for their incompetence. They're being rewarded for their confidence, because they're able to sell themselves and sell this image and this dream to the company, which makes them think, oh, yeah, we can do that. And because it's so visible as well, because if you lack confidence, you tend to sort of hide and stay a bit more in the background. Whilst if you're confident, you put yourself out there. So because they're visible, they can talk and they can sell themselves. Because they're confident, they then are more likely to get opportunities for promotion and for growth, although they're probably not the best people for the job.
Anna, it's been so lovely talking to you. I feel we could probably sit here for another 3 hours and talk, but if you've got any sort of last piece of advice, I mean, I know there'll be lots of people listening who maybe they feel a bit stuck or a little bit overwhelmed. They don't put themselves forward for those opportunities. What's sort of the best lasting piece of advice you want to give them?
I would just ask them, if you don't do this, or if you do this, what's the worst thing that can happen? Remember that probably the successful people that you have as role models in your life and as inspiration are people that are go-getters. And as go-getters, you just go and do it, regardless if you're going to be accepted or rejected. So I'd say don't be scared of being rejected, because rejection can be redirection. And just go for it, because what's the worst that can happen? You may not get that award, you may not get that promotion, but they may think of you for another role, or another company might headhunt you for another position, a better position, or you may not get that award that year, but then you may be able to get it next year. I'll say just go for it, because there's a lesson everywhere. So if you get accepted, that's it, you know how to do it. If you get rejected, you know you need to change something, and that may actually open more doors to other opportunities.
Thank you so much, Anna. I think as well, like you were just saying about people who are senior to you in the workplace, they've all been where you have been before. I remember being quite early on in this role and being asked to speak at an event. I was absolutely terrified. And my manager said to me, why don't you ask our CEO for 5 minutes of her time and if she's got any advice for you? I'm sure Henrietta won't mind me saying. But I remember sitting down with her and saying, you're so confident, you do these big speeches, how do you get through it? And she basically just sort of laughed and said, I don't, I'm still I still get nervous just as much as everybody else. That doesn't go away. You just learn to deal with it differently. And I also remember her saying something like, people only remember something like a third of what you say.
Yes.
And actually not everyone's hanging on to every single word that you're using. They'll remember the key points and the key impact points that you have. So that's always really stuck with me. But yeah, thank you so much, Anna. It's been so lovely to talk to you.
Thank you for having me.
Anna is a Future Faces member, so if you want any introductions to Anna, please do let us know. How can people find you, Anna, if people want to?
LinkedIn is the best way to find me. So if you just search for Ana Amona, so ANA, and then AMONA, you'll find me. You'll find my pretty face on LinkedIn.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Anna. It's been really lovely to talk to you. And thank you for listening to the Future Faces podcast. You can listen to all episodes on all major listening platforms, such as Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And don't forget to follow us on social media. You can find us at FF Chamber on Instagram. We're also on TikTok. And of course, we're on LinkedIn. We also want to say a huge thank you to Tribera for letting us record in their beautiful podcast space just off Broad Street. We are filming in their lovely studio today, which is in Alpha Studios. Thank you so much.